Monica Harris slammed the door behind her, the echo of betrayal rattling through the marble hall. Ethan Caldwell's cold smirk still burning in her memory. She couldn't believe he had been lying all along, pretending to be the man she trusted. Yet every word he spoke tonight had been a dagger disguised as charm. She paused in the foyer, feeling the weight of her own value. She knew he couldn't yet see the quiet power she carried in her decisions, in her resolve, a storm of strength beneath her. "Calm exterior," Ethan called after her, desperation creeping into his voice. But Monica's gaze didn't waver. She had glimpsed a truth he would never understand, a life beyond his manipulation. She reached into her purse, her fingers brushing the cool metal of her wedding ring, the symbol of all that had been shattered. She pulled it off, letting it fall into her palm, a silent declaration, a choice that could not be undone. The city lights casting shadows across her determined face as she stepped into the night, each step echoing with finality. And for the first time she wondered aloud, in a voice soft but unbreakable, does he even realize what he's lost? The morning after, Ethan Caldwell walked into the empty office, the absence of Monica Harris like a gaping hole in the rhythm of his empire. Client meetings faltered, emails unanswered, and even his top executives exchanged worried glances as he realized her meticulous touch had been the glue holding everything together. He tried to hide it, adjusting his tie, forcing a confident smile, but every misstep, every missed deadline, screamed her absence louder than any words could. Monica had quietly taken control of projects, negotiated deals, and handled crises he had not even known existed. A subtle nod from her former assistant confirmed her effectiveness. Yet Ethan felt the sting of his blindness, the power he thought he held slipping through his fingers. Whispers in the boardroom hinted that her return could reshape alliances, influence decisions, and command respect that had once been his alone. The city outside buzzed with activity while inside, he realized she had become indispensable without a single announcement. Each passing hour deepened the urgency. Every call unanswered reminded him of the leverage he had lost, and as he stared at the empty chair she had occupied, a question clawed at him. Where is she now? And how much of my world has already shifted in her absence? Monica Harris entered the sleek conference room, her heels clicking against the polished floor, heads turning as her presence filled the space with a quiet authority. She shook hands with the board members who had once barely acknowledged her, now nodding with genuine respect. A senior executive leaned toward a colleague, whispering. She handled the merger flawlessly without a single hiccup, and the words carried, bouncing from one professional to another, confirming her emerging influence. Monica felt the difference immediately, the subtle shift from overlooked to recognized, from background to central, yet she remained composed, letting her work speak louder than any announcement. Ethan, observing from his office across the city, caught wind of the murmurs, a tightening in his chest as curiosity and unease blended. A small cluster of investors praised her initiative in an impromptu meeting. The way she led discussions and framed solutions left everyone leaning in, her impact undeniable. The same people who had ignored her before now sought her opinion. His phone buzzed repeatedly with updates of her accomplishments he had not expected. The realization hit. She was not only surviving but ascending, stepping into circles that once dismissed her, each acknowledgement a subtle reminder of the leverage he had underestimated. The evening ended with Monica receiving an unexpected invitation to a prestigious gala, her name highlighted among the honored guests. Ethan stared at the screen, pulse quickening, questions forming in his mind like sparks. What exactly was she planning next? How far would her influence stretch? And when would he be forced to confront the reality he had so long ignored? Monica Harris entered the gala with quiet confidence, the crowd instinctively parting to acknowledge her presence. Whispers followed her as she moved toward the reception area. Ethan Caldwell's eyes locked on her from across the room, a flicker of disbelief crossing his face. She was no longer the woman waiting in the shadows. Now she commanded attention without speaking. A junior executive approached Monica to consult on a sponsorship opportunity, bowing slightly, and she nodded with authority, every gesture reinforcing her elevated position. Ethan stepped forward, trying to regain control of the conversation, but her calm composure and the respect she elicited from others created a subtle imbalance he could not immediately correct. He cleared his throat, offering a strained compliment. Yet Monica's half-smile conveyed her unshaken confidence. His hand tightened around his glass, a small tremor of uncertainty betraying the first hint of his loss of control. She referenced a key decision he had overlooked, and the surrounding colleagues nodded, deferring to her judgment without hesitation. Ethan realized for the first time that her influence extended beyond his perception. A soft murmur from the nearby investor circle confirmed what he had refused to acknowledge. She had outgrown the role he had assigned her. Every subtle glance and gesture magnified the contrast between their positions. Monica turned slightly, acknowledging the team with a gentle but firm nod. Ethan could see clearly now that she was no longer bound by his expectations or authority. A wave of unease swept over him as he contemplated how much power she had quietly accumulated. The ambient chatter and clinking glasses became a background to his rising anxiety as she walked past him toward a side room. He caught a glimpse of the invitation she carried in her hand, a sign of recognition he had never secured, and a single thought hit him with the force of a warning. The next moment they met. Every misstep, every hidden agenda, and every illusion of control would be confronted head-on, and he could not afford another delay. The question now pressed on him relentlessly. What exactly is she preparing? And how much of the world he thought he commanded has already shifted? In her absence, Monica Harris moved confidently through the conference hall, her presence commanding attention without a single word. A group of board members paused mid-discussion to listen as she outlined a complex investment strategy, their nods and murmurs of agreement unmistakable acknowledgement of her authority. Ethan Caldwell, standing at the edge of the room, felt a jolt of unease as his voice faltered during a presentation, the confidence he usually projected crumbling subtly in front of witnesses. Monica's clarity and command drew the eyes of senior partners who had once deferred automatically to him, the balance of influence shifting before his eyes. A project he had personally championed now progressed under her guidance. Each decision she made executed seamlessly, illustrating the precision and foresight he had previously underestimated. Whispers from the assistant team confirmed her role in averting a critical client issue, a detail Ethan had never grasped fully until now. He felt the weight of realization pressing on him. She was no longer defined by his expectations. Her position solidified independently, and every acknowledgement from colleagues, every respectful nod, amplified his growing sense of displacement. Monica's poised intervention during the board discussion silenced a sharp rebuttal he had anticipated delivering. The recognition she received publicly contrasted starkly with the dismissive treatment he had once given her, and the subtle shift of attention, the deference of others toward her, made him acutely aware that his influence over her world had diminished, the structure of his control faltering in tangible ways. As he watched her walk past, securing another invitation to a high-level strategic meeting without needing his approval, the realization sank in that she had established a realm of authority he could no longer dictate, and the question formed with sharp clarity. What deeper plans had she been orchestrating all along, and how far had she already reshaped the landscape he assumed remained his own? As Ethan Caldwell sat alone in the boardroom, reviewing quarterly reports, he noticed anomalies he had previously attributed to market fluctuations or his own oversight. Yet now the patterns pointed to Monica Harris, the projects she had overseen, and the solutions she had quietly implemented over months that he had never fully acknowledged. A folder on his desk contained client emails and detailed analyses showing that her strategies had prevented significant losses and secured key partnerships. The weight of the realization hit him. Achievements he had once credited to his leadership were inseparable from her guidance. Each note and highlighted passage a testament to her unseen influence. A senior associate approached cautiously, confirming that Monica had coordinated negotiations that had turned potential failures into major successes. Ethan's confidence faltered as doubt replaced certainty, the control he had assumed over every outcome slipping like sand through his fingers. He recalled specific milestones he had boasted about in past meetings, now reframed in his mind as outcomes fundamentally shaped by her insight and precision. The subtle smile of a colleague as they recounted her contributions made it impossible to ignore the truth. The sense of loss expanded beyond personal betrayal into structural vulnerability. His reputation, his influence, and the operational stability he had taken for granted were intertwined with her work, and for the first time, he recognized that he had misjudged her capacity and significance. A sinking awareness filled him that her role had always been far more pivotal than he had allowed himself to see. The implications pressed on him relentlessly, and the question that refused to settle in his mind. If her influence was this critical in the past, what is she orchestrating now, beyond his vision? And when he faces her next, will he be prepared to confront the full measure of what he has lost? Ethan Caldwell hurried through the sleek lobby, his voice tight as he called Monica Harris, hoping to intercept her before the meeting began, the urgency in his steps betraying a desperation he had never shown. Monica turned smoothly, her expression calm, almost indifferent, acknowledging him with a measured nod but keeping her distance. He reached out, voice low yet insistent, trying to bridge the gap. "Monica, we need to talk. What happened? We can fix this." She met his gaze evenly, her posture unyielding, a subtle but unmistakable line drawn in the space between them. The board members passing by instinctively deferred to her, pausing and allowing her through, as if confirming that she alone determined the flow of this room. Ethan's hand fell slightly, the realization hitting that the influence he assumed he still held had slipped away. She spoke, voice steady and precise. "Ethan, this is no longer your decision," each word punctuating the reversal of their previous dynamic. He swallowed, a tight knot forming in his chest, every instinct to regain control failing under the weight of her composure. Monica's assistant stepped forward, handing her documents with deference, a public acknowledgement that her authority was now unquestioned. Ethan watched as she navigated the interaction, calm and deliberate, leading the conversation and setting the agenda. He realized that every effort he made to reach her or redirect her focus met a boundary he could not cross. The room itself became a silent witness to the power shift, the respect she commanded palpable and unassailable. As the meeting progressed, colleagues responded to her instructions immediately, their recognition reinforcing her independence. Ethan could no longer define her role or influence the decisions unfolding before him. A subtle pang of panic mixed with awe took root. The certainty of his prior authority dissolved, and as Monica prepared to exit the room with the same grace and control she had maintained throughout, Ethan knew that the next encounter would demand more than words. It would require a confrontation he was not prepared for, and the pressing question formed sharply in his mind. How far has she advanced beyond my reach? And what will happen when I am finally forced to face the full extent of her power? Monica Harris stepped into the private lounge, and Ethan Caldwell followed, each movement deliberate, charged with the tension of unspoken truths. He reached for her hand, voice urgent. "Monica, please, we can work this out." She held up a finger, her gaze steady and unwavering, and the world seemed to contract around the clarity of her presence. "Ethan, it is over. Not because I do not care, but because I will not be defined by your choices anymore." The words landed with quiet authority, resonating through the space between them. Ethan felt the first true tremor of loss, the certainty of his influence dissipating like mist. He tried again, searching for a familiar opening, but her composure created an unbreakable boundary. The assistants and colleagues nearby instinctively deferred to her, giving her space and attention he once controlled, each subtle acknowledgement reinforcing that the power balance had shifted irrevocably. Ethan's chest tightened, a sharp awareness settling in that every misstep of the past, every assumption he had held about her role, had been a misunderstanding of magnitude he could no longer deny. She took a measured step back, keeping the distance, eyes unwavering, conveying that his access, emotional, professional, and personal, was now restricted. The calm decisiveness in her movements contrasted sharply with his racing thoughts. The familiar dynamic of pursuit and control had been inverted. The realization settled like concrete in his mind. He had lost the capacity to influence her, to sway her decisions, and to reclaim the world he thought he had shaped around her. She straightened her posture. A subtle nod to the executive presence signaled readiness and authority, an external validation of the independence he could not contest. Ethan's voice faltered, the urgency now tinged with helplessness, his hands unclenching at his sides, the past confidence replaced by doubt. he began, then stopped, understanding that no word, no plea, could undo the boundaries she had established. Monica's eyes softened slightly, but remained firm, the emotional closure complete in her mind. And as she turned to walk toward the elevator, the gap between them both literal and symbolic, he realized fully for the first time the depth of what he had lost. Not just her presence, but the certainty, influence, and intimacy he had taken for granted. And the last thing he saw before the doors closed was her hand brushing the card on the desk, a small but undeniable claim on a future he would no longer control, leaving him with the question burning in his chest. What decisions will she make next, and how far beyond my reach has she already gone? Monica Harris stood at the edge of the rooftop garden, city lights stretching endlessly below, her posture straight, eyes calm, radiating a sense of completeness she no longer needed to prove. The soft breeze carried the hum of the city, yet she remained grounded, fully in control of her own path. The gala invitations, the boardroom acknowledgments, and the strategic decisions she had mastered were now markers of a life built entirely on her own terms. Ethan Caldwell watched from the distance, leaning against the glass wall of the lobby below, a hand pressed lightly against the cool surface, the weight of understanding settling over him as he absorbed the permanence of her independence. He realized fully that every attempt to reach her, to reclaim a connection or influence her choices, was not only futile but unnecessary. She had already moved beyond the sphere he once controlled. The memory of their shared past, once central to his confidence and sense of identity, now appeared as a muted reflection, faint and distant, the contrast sharp and undeniable. Monica's expression held no bitterness, no longing, only clarity and self-possession. The power she possessed was not in proving herself, but in no longer needing to. Ethan's chest tightened with quiet regret, the acknowledgement of loss complete, yet silent, as he turned slowly away, leaving her in the glow of the rooftop lights. The space between them filled with unspoken understanding, the past dissolved, and the finality settled in an unshakable truth. He would never again define her, shape her path, or command her attention, and she no longer needed him to see her, to validate her, or to measure her worth. The night carried on with distant laughter and faint music. Monica took a slow breath, absorbing the stillness. The culmination of her journey manifest in the ease of her stance, the calm in her eyes, and the quiet certainty that she had fully stepped forward into a world where she belonged entirely to herself, while Ethan, now at a remove both literal and emotional, watched with a muted reverence, the lesson clear and irreversible. The rooftop garden shimmering beneath the stars, a silent testament to the distance between them and the irrevocable close of what once had been.